In our final segment, Governor Cuomo and Albany lawmakers touted bipartisan victory this past week, reaching deals on a number of issues, from pension reform to teacher evaluations. But the governor admitted he failed to convince lawmakers on one thing: creating an independent redistricting process, something that he had promised. Here's what the governor had to say.
I would have liked an independent commission to draw these lines. That did not work. I lost. I have an independent commission for all time going forward. The Constitution will be amended, and there will be a statute that is in place. So the madness stops. That's what I accomplished. The madness stops.
But does it? Every 10 years, voting lines are redrawn to reflect the census. Now, this is an issue that we've been following closely on this program, and joining us now are two lawmakers who fought to have independent redistricting. Assemblyman Hakeem Jeffries is here with us, and State Senator Michael Gianaris is also with us here as well on the program. You've been here before with us, talking about this before. You know, when the governor says going forward there's going to be an independent commission and that it's all good and well, you both are saying, no, it's not, right?
Yeah, I only wish it were so. The fact is we made things worse. The madness is not going to stop. It's going to get even worse than what we just saw. This amendment that doesn't even take effect for 10 years, if it happens ever, would set up a commission that still defers back to the legislature for the final vote, and the legislature can continue doing what it's done. Even worse than that, it sets up a process in the Constitution for the first time in the modern history of any state in the country that actually biases one party over another. It actually says that if the Republicans maintain control of the Senate, they need fewer votes to pass a plan than if the Democrats take over the Senate in the next 10 years. So the Constitution itself would have a bias towards the Republican Party, according to what they agreed to.
Hakeem?
Well, you know, I think that the governor should be given credit for attempting to reform the redistricting process. It's a very difficult thing to accomplish, given the nature of who is in the Senate majority right now, and the fact that they are dead set against any type of reform so they can maintain their artificial stranglehold on power. I also voted against the constitutional amendment because I do believe that while it was perhaps attempted to be done in good faith by some of the parties, certainly the governor and the Assembly Speaker and the Assembly majority, it did not go far enough in accomplishing meaningful reform.
Okay, for those who may not understand the whole redistricting thing, explain why it's important for voters to be aware of this and to understand this process, because there's a sense that, you know, the whole process is meant to favor incumbents, which what we're hearing, what you're saying is it still does, correct?
Well, unfortunately, people are under the illusion in this state that they actually are electing their own representatives. In fact, what's happening is the representatives are sitting down with maps and choosing who gets to vote for them or not vote for them. And of course, when that happens...
And they're choosing favorably for themselves.
Exactly right. So we have, for example, in this state, if you look at the results in 2010, Democratic candidates for state senate around the state scored 55% of the vote if you add them all together. But the results show that the Republicans won 32 to 30 of the seats are Democrats because of the gerrymandering.
You're running for Congress right now.
I'm a candidate for Congress.
You're a candidate. And you've had issues with this district lines before, right?
Well, when I'd run for the Assembly in 2000 against a 20-year incumbent backed by the local Democratic organization, Albany Political Establishment, I didn't win. We got more than 40% of the vote. We shocked the establishment. I was preparing to run again in 2002, which was a redistricting year. Got a phone call indicating that the lines had been redrawn and that my house had been cut out of the district by block. So I woke up in one assembly district that was very different than the one in which I got to bed in. And I did wind up moving and was ultimately successful in 2006.
So you had to move. Literally move.
I was forced to move. Fortunately, my family was growing, and so I was able to internally convince everyone that this was a helpful thing to do. But it's interesting because in this process, congressionally, the lines are not being drawn by the legislature, but they're being drawn by the court because the legislature couldn't come to an agreement. And in the first draft that was produced...
And we're talking congressional district lines here.
Congressional district lines right now being drawn by the court. And in the first draft that was produced, my home was also drawn out, this time by a judge, not by the legislature. The home of the incumbent was also drawn out. And so the court was at least an equal opportunity offender. But it does show that redistricting is a tricky process. and can produce some perverse results. But the reality is we've got to try and get it as fair as possible.
So what's a better way to do this?
Well, let's talk about what just happened, right? And the governor, I heard him say he lost, but he had it within his power not to lose. He had promised to veto these lines.
And I want to point out, we got two Democrats here, and you're talking about a Democratic governor. So you both are going up against the governor here on this.
Well,
right?
I'm certainly disappointed in the way he handled this issue.
Keep going along with your track.
He had made it very clear he was going to veto lines that were not drawn fairly, and by all accounts, these lines are not drawn fairly. So I heard him say he lost. I'm disappointed that he acquiesced to the lines, but he had it within his power to veto those lines and make sure that the courts take over the process and do things a lot fairly.
So why didn't he?
Well, he's the one that could best be in a position to answer that question. All I know is we were up till all hours of the night passing all sorts of unrelated bills, and it certainly seems to many of us that there was a deal.
A compromise or a
done.
deal.
Well, I wouldn't call it a compromise. I would call it a typical Albany shady deal where you stay up all night and throw the kitchen sink in to get things done, and it seems to me there's an agreement to do the lines the legislature wanted for a number of agenda items the governor was advancing.
So if you were to ask viewers to email one particular person in the legislature to get this fixed, who would it be?
Well, I think that actually the biggest
You passed on that one.
I'll be happy to answer. But
I would suggest that the biggest problem with the lines that were just passed, which I voted against, were the lines that were drawn by the Senate Republican majority and Dean Scalos. And the reality is that these were lines that did violence to the Historic Voting Rights Act, that they treated African American and Latino communities in Nassau County, in Suffolk County, in Rochester unfairly. And it was done in a way to artificially maintain the Senate majority in the face of demographic population losses that are not to their advantage, voter registration that's moving in the other direction, and that's the problem.
Okay, I'm out of time here, so I can't pin you guys down on a particular person, but anyways.
I would agree with about Dean Scalos.
Dean Scalos, okay. So thank you both for being here with us this morning. We appreciate it, and that's going to do it for this edition of Up Close.